Global FM, your number one source for R&B in the yeah.
Global 99.5 FM reminds our listeners that the views and opinions expressed on this show are those of the host and guests and not necessarily the opinions of the owners of Global Communications Network and the operators of this radio station.
Today can be the turning point in your life by making a simple decision.
Fundamental questions of navigation. Where am I? Where am I going? And how do I get there from here?
I invite the leaders of our planet to ask themselves these three questions before they make any crucial decisions.
But if you don't make decisions, you're going to stay right where you are.
We are all map makers.
We are in a time of transition.
If we're going to change, we have to change the direction that we're going.
Our planet needs leaders who know where they want to go.
When we change the direction we're going, then we want to make sure we're going in the right direction.
Leaders who can see the big picture.
Because if we're not, we're going to either go backwards or we're going to stay where we are.
Recognizing the psychological and the spiritual shifts and changes that need to be made, often from the inside to the outside.
To be able to shape your future, you have to be willing and able to change your paradigm.
Complex journeys require navigation. The path to the truth is one such journey. This is your GPS. Hairstyling services provided by J.D. Edwards Salon and Spa, Palmdale Shopping Plaza, Madera Street. Accessories provided by Chevette Williamson Jewelry. Standout jewelry for standout women. Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to GPS Global Paradigm Shift on Global 99.5 FM. I am your host, Michelle Malcolm, and as always, it's a pleasure to be in your company today. First and foremost, I would like to thank Professor Sidney MacArthur Walter Thompson, who sat in for me yesterday in my absence. It was a rough day for me yesterday. I lost my father and was clearly not in the right, mindset to think about doing a show. Still not feeling like doing a show, but one thing my late father, Daniel Malcolm, was a slacker. And he believed in, getting up and getting it done. And I'm pretty sure that he would have wanted me to do the same. My dad was 86 years old, still sharp as a tack, going strong. And we lost him rather suddenly. So yesterday was a rough one. And I want to thank Professor Thompson for sitting in for me yesterday. Going forward, I may have to miss another day or so because I have to travel for his funeral service. And I'm pretty sure, hopefully, if he's available, Professor Thompson may sit in for me at that time. But I want to thank you, Professor, for your assistance yesterday. It truly did help a lot because I was not obviously in the frame of mind to do a show yesterday. So since last week, I had planned to do this show and I'd already arranged for the guest for today's show. And so I thought, instead of thrusting that on the professor, I perhaps should make every effort to get up and keep moving because the show had already been planned for today. And so here I am. Don't expect the usually boisterous Michelle because I don't have the energy to do that today, honestly. It's interesting because when you are grieving, it's not just an emotional thing, but it really takes its toll on you physically as well. And so I'm still kind of really, really worn down physically. But I will get through this. And here to help me get through it, I see where he's in the There he is. Okay, let's turn on the let's bring him into the studio. Jeff Beckles, an old friend who has appeared on my shows in other places before I got here to Global. This is his first time appearing on the show with me here on Global. And Jeff, I want to say thank you for being a part of the show today. Jeff is a business consultant and digital payments leader and managing director of Island Pay. And we're going to be talking. I'm calling this show today the risks, responsibilities, and rewards of investing. And as we go through the show, you'll understand what it is all about. So Jeff is coming to us from his vehicle today because
Yes.
because he got plans. He got to go pick up children and things like that. But Jeff, thank you so
Yeah.
much, man. I really appreciate you being here today. Thank you so much, and welcome to GPS.
Well, good afternoon, Michelle. And firstly, our condolences and our love to you and your family on the
Thank
passing
you.
of your dad, and for showing extraordinary courage to just find the energy to be front and center when usually we understand that during these times we wouldn't expect you, but here you are. And I think that's a testament to your courage. But it also says something that you mentioned earlier about your dad and the standard that he set for you, in spite of, keep pressing. And so we understand why if you couldn't be here, but I certainly thank you for being here. And it's a real joy. It's a real joy to be here with you, especially
Thank,
now. Especially now.
thank you. Thank you. I know you're going to help me get through this show today.
Mm,
Okay, so everybody's aware of the fallout from FTX. I mean,
right.
this just keeps going and going and going and going. And you're hearing some people saying that, the government should do more to, protect the investors, particularly Bahamian investors who lost so much in this FTX situation. But I saw some commentary on a group that you both and I are a part of on WhatsApp, and pretty much the thinking was, this is investing. This is the risk that you take when you invest in something, whether it's crypto or something else. You should go in knowing that you have a certain degree of risk involved. And is that the responsibility of a government or a regulator or anyone else to bail you out if it goes south?
Well, it is the hottest subject of the day. And, there are several things that are important for us to consider. First of all, there are too many people talking, right? Too many people who are void of the facts. And as typical in many spaces, when something goes wrong, everybody becomes a professional or an expert. So I tend not to get myself mixed up in the pontificating and the opinions, because the truth of the matter is there are people who are assigned to oversee this sector. There are people who are assigned to such as the regulators, and there are people who are intimately involved in it. And I believe that the process has to run its course so that at the end of the day, are there lessons to be learned from this at all levels? Yes, from the policy level, it's all the way down to the investor level, or from the investor level all the way up to the regulator policy level. But I think in order to be fair to the entire conversation, while there are some initial low-hanging fruit lessons that we could all learn, you're right, investing does take risks, and it calls for that. But we have a lot of focus on the risk when it goes bad. We don't do a lot of work on the research, exploratory, the educational side of investing.
The responsibility
Right?
side, in other words.
And the responsibility side of it. What are the obligations? What are my obligations as a potential investor? What are my obligations? What are the obligations of those who I've invested with? And so one of the things we don't do very well is we don't do the homework before. Now, it doesn't mean that there aren't risks associated with investing. There are going to be risks all the time. I mean, everything we do has a degree of risk attached to it. And that's why investment advisors always ask the question, what is your risk appetite for this investment? Is it low? Is it medium? Is it high? Because the yields are different as well. And so,
Okay. So Jeff,
as a general, yeah,
I have a call on the line that's been waiting for a
Mhm.
minute. So let's stick a
Sure,
pin right there in that thought, and
no
let's take
worries.
this call. Caller, welcome to GPS. Hello, caller. Caller, are you still there? No? All right. Jason, put
We
up
can hear
the
someone. Yeah.
numbers, please. The numbers to call 3260271, 3260271, and 3260272. And the WhatsApp line for text messages only is 801-0271. Okay, sorry for interrupting you, Jeff.
Yeah.
I hadn't finished the point.
Yeah, so at the end of the day, there's an educational process that determines your or my appetite for risk, because lower risk investments yield lower returns, and medium and higher, the higher the risk, sometimes higher the reward. But at the end of the day, we cannot exclude the component of um, the obligation on the investor to learn as much as you can. Now, keep in mind that my knowledge of a particular product that I may want to invest in does not determine market behavior. Okay, because I could be very well knowledged, very well learned, absorbed, and all attuned to as much about this asset that I'm going to invest in, but then the market conditions may take an entirely different different view, and I could lose, whether I can gain or remain the same. So my knowledge of the market doesn't necessarily dictate how what could happen with my investment today, tomorrow 9 o'clock, tomorrow midnight.
In other
They're
words, you
two
could do your
very
due
different
diligence
things.
and it can go south anyway. That's what
It
you're
can still
saying.
go south, right?
Yeah.
And remember now, most of the well-known investment brokers leading around the world, whether they're from major entities or smaller entities, will tell you, in order for them to have gotten to where they are, they took some losses, they took some beatings. In fact,
Right.
they took losses. Some of them probably went bankrupt several times. But at the end of the day, investments are simply tied with risks. And I think it's important when we start thinking about investments that we understand that every level of investment has a degree of acceptable risk. And there are those who will say, I'm going to roll the dice.
Okay.
Well,
We
as with
do have a
all
caller back
dice, you
on
have
the
snake
line.
eyes.
We have the caller back on the line. Caller, welcome to GPS.
Good morning, good afternoon, Miss Malcolm. I haven't called in a while, and the only reason why I'm calling is because I love you. I love your strength, and those who feel didn't notice, I had a brother die, so I know how you feel, and I'm sorry. I love your family. I don't know you. I know you in my senses and in my thoughts, and I love you. And you be strong and bless.
All right. Thank you so much. And my deepest sympathy to you as well on your loss. Okay. So my guest today is Jeffrey Beckles. We are discussing risks, responsibilities, and rewards of investment. In the light of the fact that so many people are now looking to the government and looking to regulators and looking to everyone and everywhere to try to recoup some of their losses as it relates to this FTX situation in general. But it does raise the question about, the risk you take, the responsibilities on your part, and like Jeff well pointed out, the responsibilities on the part of the investment or the person or the entity in which you are investing, and then the rewards. It's often said the higher the risk, the higher the reward. But then, you got to have a stomach for it. Somebody once told me that you should never invest anything that you aren't able to or willing to lose.
Yeah.
So, in other words, you go into that investment knowing that there's a possibility that you could lose what you're investing. And if that means that would destroy your life, then you want to think twice before investing all of that. Maybe you should, cut back on some of it, not do as much, etc. If you can't afford to lose it, should you be investing?
Well, let's go back to something even more fundamental, right? The Bahamas, by and large, from a consumer standpoint, most Bahamian consumers are not prone to an investment lifestyle, right? We've just not been that kind of investor community, that culture. We don't have that. This is something that's new in many respects, which you go back to BISEX, right? And we look at our stock exchange. Many Bahamian listed companies, but trading is often not very active. And this comes from a community that's a little bit more investment savvy. There isn't a lot of activity. So the idea of us becoming investors is more new than it is old, in that, not to say that people who haven't in Bahamas haven't been investing. The point is, we're not the investor savvy environment, as in, say, in North America, where people have been born into an environment where the stock exchange and NASDAQ and all those have been actively involved and actively a part of every newscast, and you hear it every day. We're beginning to become a lot more investor savvy. However, what that means, though, is it doesn't mean because I have $1, I need to go and find something, just to go invest it in. It still requires us to embrace a degree of education. We must educate ourselves. When we start talking about our knowledge-based investment, then you start understanding a little bit more of the obligations. What are the obligations? And whether it's you're investing in basic listed investments, which we basically license and permitted to do now under the current rules, or we're investing in a company or in a product, the same obligation exists. Because remember now, a lot of Bahamians are involved in crowdfunding exercises. They're involved in with the port and with APD and some of the other entities, Cable Bahamas, Fidelity, Royal Bank, all of these entities that are on the market, right? Bahamians have been buying into those entities. Do they have risk? Yes, they do. But if you look at both of the profiles of those investments, most of those profiles are low risk investments. Mm-hmm. So we don't have a lot of experiences where there have been major investments tied to major losses. So any significant failure in the investment community in the Bahamas is going to be viewed as catastrophic, right? Not that it isn't significant, but we're not in an ecosystem where you find significant failures, as say in the United States or Canada. So Bahamians are becoming, by and large, more and more adapt to the fact that risk is associated with investments, and the more savvy we become, the more we are going to be attuned to not just the risk side, but what are some of the other downsides to investments, right? What are my obligations to know about the entity that I've invested in, the investment advisor, and why is it important to have an investment advisor? I believe that you will find that these are some of the things that are going to become commonplace in terms of discussions in the Bahamian environment about future investments.
Now, speaking of the Bahamian environment and investment, you're right. We do have several entities out there that Bahamians can invest in, but we have a tendency, generally speaking, you buy a stock and you sit on that stock forever. There's not a lot of trading going on,
right?
So it's kind of different from what we see happening on other trade markets elsewhere in the world. Bahamians believe they're supposed to buy a stock and then just sit there and wait for it to grow in value. Yeah. And maybe use it for a rainy day. If you run into a problem, you may have to sell one or two of your shares. But there's not that degree of trading going on that we see in other markets. So has this hindered our ability to truly understand what it means to participate in investment to the degree that you can, take some more risk and have a greater reward? Returns.
Well, there are two perspectives to look at that. One, because we are a new investment environment, we're trying to grow our investment climate here in the Bahamas with BISEX, right? We need more Bahamian companies who are prepared to be listed and to be traded on the market, right? Because that's how you build it. The volatility creates desire, drive, and all of this. And then, and the truth is, the concept of trading becoming a BISX listed entity requires a very different mindset from the business owner. Most businesses in the Bahamas want to remain sole ownership, and that's it. I don't want anybody in my business, right? We need more businesses who are prepared to become qualified to be listed. And then you said something else that's a challenge for us, and we have to overcome it. Bahamians, by and large, buy a stock and put it in the safety deposit box, right? And so you buy a stock, and you bought it 5 years ago, and you bought it for $5, and 5 years later it's $5.10, or maybe $4.49 or whatever. One of the fundamental things about trading is that you have to trade. You've got to create an appetite for someone to want to buy that stock, and that affects the price, right? And so I go back to something that I said earlier. We're learning what it means to be in a part of a trading environment where we understand that if I keep it, nobody's going to want it. But if I whet your appetite by putting some of it in the market, nothing wrong with saving some of it, sitting on some of it. But if I whet your appetite by ensuring that, out of these 300, 400 million shares that are on the market for this particular product, how many of those are actually active in the market, teasing the market, testing the market? Who wants it? Who's prepared to pay $5.10 for something that I bought for $5? Who's prepared to pay $5.15? If there's no active pooling and trading of that asset, chances are nobody's going to buy it. And I think that's part and parcel of the reason we see some of our long-term listed entities, the value does not change much because we're not creating the traction and the appetite for someone else to buy. I'll give you an example. Several years ago, when APD was put out there, and APD was oversubscribed, and then the port was oversubscribed, right? Well, guess what? When APD was put out there, there were thousands of Bahamians who wanted more, who wanted to get in. Well, one of the ways, if it was fully subscribed, one of the ways to create the appetite for the remaining thousands who wanted to get in was to start trading. Put some of those stocks on the market to be sold, right? And you affect the price. And so you affect, if somebody wanted it, fine. I may have bought it, like I said, for $5, but if it's out there for $5.15, even $5.50, I may decide, you know what, I'll take 1,000 shares. But guess what? At some point, I have to be prepared to put 300-400 of my shares back into the trading pool. Why? We want to create an appetite for someone else to buy in, and it may have to buy in at $5.75. But the reality of it was oversubscribed, and 10 years later, we still have people looking to buy shares in the same entity, but that desire could only be created if people who hold the shares would actually go out there and put some on the market and trade.
Right. We've got a lot to learn as it relates to how this whole thing works. But based on what is happening with this FTX situation, it seems that we're not the only ones who have a lot to learn. We're going to take a break, but after the break, I came across an article. Would-be crypto sleuths converge on the Bahamas to hunt for SBF. So in other words, these people who invested so much money jumping on the plane and coming here in the Bahamas to look for this man themselves because they're desperate now. They're trying to figure out, how am I going to get my money back? Question is, will they ever? I'll take a break. When we come back, we're talking to Jeff Beckles, and the topic is investment, risk, responsibilities, and rewards. We'll be back after these words from our sponsors.
At Lee Air, safety is our #1 priority. Flying since 1996, we offer scheduled flights into Fresh Creek and Mangrove Key Andros and Great Harbor Key, Berry Island, twice daily, 7 days a week. Affordable charter services are also available to anywhere in the Bahamas and the Caribbean. Lee Air Charter Services. Call 225-3267, 702-7127, or 322-1317 for reservations.
One of the things I love about the mailboat is their relationship with Bahamas Air. I can earn travel points on my international freight and redeem them when I fly.
For me, online shopping is easy, with mailboat to U.S. addresses and regular freight delivery to Nassau. Plus, I can always prepay customs and freight, and they always notify me when my package arrives.
Yeah, a lot of people think the mailboat is just for shipping, but they also offer a safe and secure storage facility at affordable rates, all in a central, convenient location.
We also offer passenger service into Freeport multiple times per week with a seating capacity of over 450 persons. With family movies on large screens, one hot meal included, and on-board lounge for snacks and soft drinks. We're the mailboat. We're bridging people, products, and places.
Understanding your microbiome, also known as your gut ecosystem, can change everything you thought you knew about nutrition, digestion, immunity, and metabolism. Keeping your gut ecosystem healthy and balanced is essential. Ultimate Microbiome by Longevity was specifically formulated to optimize this ecosystem. It provides the advanced support your gut needs through prebiotic, probiotic, and postbiotic supplementation. Our unique blend of probiotics includes Lactobacillus and Plantarum, healthy bacteria that can help prevent harmful bacteria from taking over your gut. Increasing your gut's population of beneficial bacteria creates a more balanced gut microbiome, which has been shown to aid in weight loss, skin health, sleep, mood, and may even help with seasonal allergies. Ultimate Microbiome also promotes the production of postbiotics. Postbiotics are key to help regulate your gastrointestinal health. To enhance digestion, Digizyme Multi-Enzyme Complex, a blend of 5 specific enzymes, has been added to Ultimate Microbiome. It can help break down food so your body can better absorb nutrients. Plus, we've added our proprietary I-26 hyperimmune egg powder to aid in the elimination of disease-causing gut bacteria and help your body balance its immune response. Ultimate Microbiome, the scientific, proprietary, and holistic approach to gut health that helps optimize your body's entire gut ecosystem. To learn more, contact your Longevity associate.
Welcome to Sunshine Auto, the hardest place on the planet for a rims, tints, and tires.
We are your auto superstore for rims, Lexani, Azaras, Trueform, Western, Lux, Fuel, Trackline, Tough, Rough Racing, Velocity, Mud, All-Terrain, and low-profile tires, cars, homes, and commercial window tinting. At Sunshine Auto, we put God first and customer is king.
Blessed love.
To stay healthy, it's crucial to make sure you get the nutrition you need every day. But it's difficult to get all your recommended vitamins and minerals from food alone. Even in the United States, 94% of people are deficient in at least one nutrient. Beyond Tangy Tangerine 2.0 by Longevity is a simple, convenient, and affordable way to help your body get the essential nutrients it needs. It's an advanced plant-driven multivitamin mineral complex that contains certified organic whole foods, trace minerals, and antioxidants. BTT 2.0 supports your body's natural defense system with a proprietary blend of energy-boosting and body-loving nutrients, plus prebiotics, probiotics, amino acids, and enzymes that support digestion. With an unusually high ORAC score of 8,000, you get even more antioxidants to help combat free radicals that can cause damage to your cells. But to get the most benefit and value from any multivitamin, your body must be able to break down the nutrients so you can fully absorb them. Otherwise, they'll just pass through your system without doing any good. Beyond Tangy Tangerine 2.0 was specially formulated with synergizing cofactors to ensure you get maximum nutrient absorption. Beyond Tangy Tangerine 2.0 is the easiest way to give your body the balance and complete daily vitamin mineral supplement it needs for optimal support of your overall health. To learn more, contact your Longevity associate.
This portion of GPS is brought to you by Tiki Bikini Hut at Junkanoo Beach. Great food, cool tropical drinks, and family fun in the sun. Welcome back to GPS, Global Paradigm Shift on Global 99.5 FM. Michelle Malcolm in your company, along with my guest today, Jeffrey Beckles. We are talking about investment, the risks, responsibilities, and
rewards. There are telephone numbers to call: 3260271, 3260271, 3260272, 3260272, and the WhatsApp line for text messages only: 801-0271, 801-0271. So everybody around the world is talking about the collapse of the FTX, and there are a lot of people for whom this conversation is very, very personal because they lost a hell of a lot of money, including the likes of a Tom Brady. I read an article where he and his wife lost $650 million of investment in FTX. And there are some who didn't lose as much as that, but whatever they put in, they sure enough going to try to get it back. And they are not satisfied that enough is happening from, what are you saying to me, Jason? They're not satisfied that enough is happening from the regulatory side or the government of the Bahamas. They feel that the government or whoever, the regulators aren't doing enough. So these folks decide they take matters into their own hands. I came across an article from the online site Decrypt. And listen to this. Would-be crypto sleuths converge on the Bahamas to hunt for Sam Bankman-Fried. The crypto community takes the search for the disgraced FTX founder into their own hands. Now, this is, I find amazing. I'm just going to read a portion of this article. Following the collapse of cryptocurrency exchange FTX, crypto Twitter influencers are converging on the Bahamas in search of former chief executive Sam Bankman-Fried. The now bankrupt exchange has been headquartered in the Bahamas since September of last year and operated out of a penthouse at the Albany Resort, a gated community located on the island of New Providence. The neighborhood is now the target of impromptu investigations, ostensibly on behalf of the crypto community. Ben Armstrong, who runs a popular YouTube channel called BitBoy Crypto, posted a live stream of himself walking around the resort's property, where he was eventually turned away by staff. Armstrong has gone to other locations on the island to try and pry further. He posted a video of himself at a residence where the Washington Post reported SBF's parents own property. Armstrong did not immediately respond to a request for comment from Decrypt. More influencers are on their way to see what information they could potentially unearth. YouTuber Gabriel Haynes, who's posted multiple viral rants about the calamities surrounding SBF and FTX on Twitter, successfully crowdfunded $10,000 to fly him and his family to the Bahamas. Haynes told Decrypt he's currently on his way to the island, and while he isn't confident he'll be able to find SBF, he hopes his videos can provide some relief to a community still reeling from the swift shuttering of one of the largest and most popular crypto exchanges. So, Jeff, these people ain't playing. They jumping on the plane. They jumping on the plane and they coming looking for this boy themselves.
Well, I think the comments that are being put out there are reflective of the temperature in that investment pool. Nobody likes to lose, right, on any level, and certainly no one likes to lose money. But despite what people may say, there is still a rule of law, and when we let our emotions run high, I understand people have lost money. Don't get me wrong, but at the end of the day, there's a rule of law, right? And we must have a high regard for the fact that whether we are indifferent to the rule of law or not, it doesn't change the fact that rules exist. So when these people, as they purport, attempt to come here or to wherever they go to try and take matters into their own hands, then that's a different story. That's part of the unfortunate fallout, right? But at the end of the day, part of your question talks about responsibilities, right? Who was actually responsible? And when I signed on the dotted line to invest in your business, did I really have an understanding of what obligations I had to you and you had to me? Because the truth of the matter is, yesterday we were having a conversation about a similar issue where unsecured creditors were trying to get in front of the line. Well, you know what happens to unsecured creditors. They don't get any traction at all, right? Unsecured. So it means that you took the risk on yourself. You prepared to take the risk of whatever it is that you're putting out there. You're prepared to take the risk. So when the risk day comes, you're clamoring to be paid. Well, but you accepted the risk of being an unsecured creditor, right? And so sometimes, going back to the responsibility side of your question, who's responsible for my investment, right? And what are the terms in which I invested? Listen, I go back to saying what I said earlier. Nobody likes to lose. Nobody likes to lose their money. But in this case, when people are going to be saying, well, who's going to pay me back? Well, you knew where you invested, you knew why you invested, and you knew how you invested. So why are we asking a ton of questions of people who you didn't invest with?
You know what amazes me? Was that a call for the show? No, you know what amazes me, Jeff? No, I was asking my producer if that was a call for the show. What amazes me, Jeff, in this whole FTX situation is this. This young man and his cohorts were able to convince not just the unsuspecting individual who figured that this may be a good thing without doing due diligence or whatever, but major investment entities who should have done their due diligence to understand what was happening behind the scenes. I mean, it just amazes me that this young man and his friends were able to, in Bahamian terms, swing so many people, because not all of the investors in FTX were regular everyday folks looking to better themselves, but you're talking major financial
I think I lost
entities.
you for a moment there. I got you as far as you're saying this.
You got me as far as what? How far did you get me, Jeff?
And you were
Okay,
saying this young man was doing just a signal went back.
You're in an area where this is not great because now we're losing you.
Okay, go ahead.
So okay, how far did you say you got?
When you were talking about this young man.
Yeah, what I was saying is, there weren't just regular everyday folks who invested their monies into FTX, but you're talking some major investment firms or some major financial entities that should have done their due diligence to understand who they were dealing with. Somebody told me, oh, he's very charismatic. You're talking billions of dollars of charisma. I could see him being able to swing Joe Blow. But how was this young man able to, in Bahamian terms, swing some of these major financial institutions that clearly didn't do their due diligence before they invested all this money into this operation? How did he get it?
But is it a lack of due diligence? Because another thing that people are missing in this discussion, there's a very, very different. Well, let me put it this way: mismanagement, bad management is very different, right? Than a company selling you swamp land and calling it prime land, right?
Right.
It's very different. And what a lot of people may not be focusing on is that, yes, you gave me your money, but if I mismanage your money, right, that will eventually result in something, right? Some impact, some negative impact. So with due diligence, I mean, for instance, do you and I get to see the bank manager with whom we make our payroll deposits every 2 weeks? Do we get to see everything that they do with our deposits? Do we get to see if there is any mismanagement in the ranks of the bank or anything like that? We don't typically, as an investor, as a depositor, we don't typically see that, We only know that something went wrong that created a collapse, right? Is that a product of due diligence? I don't think so. Some may disagree, but I don't think it is. Okay.
But when you're
Now, if
talking billions of dollars, Jeff, I mean, they were operating without a board of directors.
but
You
principally
don't have to
though,
take very.
does it change whether it's $1 or $1 billion? Okay. Let me ask you this, right?
Mhm.
Then, as an investor, let's go back to obligation. Was that a question that I was prone to ask before the rain started? Was that a
It
question
should
that
have
was
been.
available for me to ask? Was that a question available in my due diligence exercise? That one, I wanted to make sure that they were licensed. I wanted to make sure that they were regularized. I wanted to make sure that structurally their structure met the requisite requirements for a company to be registered and operable in the jurisdiction. So are those questions that I would have been prone to ask before or after it started raining?
Should they not have
And if
been?
they, well, based on what is being purported by these persons who are seeking these answers, it would appear that these questions were very much available to be answered. Okay, and so one has to be very, very careful. If I was selling you, like I said, swampland and calling it prime land, and you decided to buy 20 acres at $100,000 an acre, and then you found out that, boy, Jeffrey sold me a bunch of swampland. You had an opportunity to see the land before you wrote your check or made your financial transfer. You had an opportunity to ask all of these questions. Where was this land? How is it? But it's a slightly different thing when they couldn't see the land per se, the asset. They invested because they felt this was something that I could do. This was something that I could trust. This was something that I could do. Mind you, all the regulatory framework surrounding the crypto space was available, to every crypto investor around the world, to everyone. And how many conversations have been had that explain the difference between, for instance, a sand dollar digital currency versus a cryptocurrency, and the fact that a sand dollar, Bahamian sand dollar currency is backed by a central bank and insured by a central bank, when crypto is not backed or supported or protected by any regulatory environment. So all of this information was readily available to every single investor in the space.
Wait just a second. Mute myself. Okay, go
I
ahead.
think you just opened a second
Go ahead. My
link,
apologies.
right? Yeah. So all of that
Yeah.
information was readily available to every single investor prior to buying transfer, writing a check, or however you chose to pay for it. So in response to your question, yes, if that's the case, then since that is the case, it was very much available for every single investor to ask that question.
All right, Jason, I need you to start bringing in the comments, please. I don't think that I have. Let me see if I have the ability to do that from my end. No, so I'm going to need you to do that. The telephone number is 3260271, 3260271, 3260272, 3260272, and the WhatsApp line for text messages only is 8010271, 8010271. This person on the screen now says, is your guest trying to say that this will have no effect for crypto generally and the Bahamas especially? Is that what you're trying to say, Jeffrey?
Sorry, read that again one more time. You said if I'm trying to do what?
A guest trying to say, put it back up, Jason. Put the comment back up. Is your guest trying to say that this will have no effect for crypto generally and the Bahamas especially?
No, certainly not at all. My point was in response to your question about whether or not certain questions could have been asked and answered prior to. From the country as it exists today must respond to this tragedy. It must on several levels. What I suggested earlier in my comments was let those people responsible for doing their jobs in the regulatory space and the legal space do their jobs, right? No one wants to lose, and I get that, but it'll be foolhardy to try and pre-conclude this discussion one way or the other until those folks are allowed to do their jobs. Until then, I sympathize with the people who've lost money, whether they lost $1 or lost $1 billion. Fact of the matter is they made an investment that went bad. Okay, and that's never a good feeling, a good taste in anybody's mouth. So no, I'm not suggesting that at all, caller.
All right, so somebody is saying, I don't blame them for coming here because that's too much money to lose. And I think this will make things extremely hard for crypto here, way more strict after this foolishness. Okay.
Is it strict or whether or not I don't know if it's so much strict, but there are, as I said earlier, there are lessons to be learned about this for everybody, from the investor, from the future potential investor, to the regulatory persons and to policymakers. There are lessons to be learned, not just here in the Bahamas, but globally, because if you're going to talk about regulations, right, we have to be careful that we want it, we can't have it both ways. The crypto environment, as it relates to or compared to fiat regulatory frameworks, is very, very different. Before all of this, nobody wanted to be regulated. Everybody wanted the free right to do whatever they wanted to do, right? The risk is yours. Now that we've had this dilemma, everybody wants regulation. So you got to decide which side of the fence we want to be on. We want to operate in an environment that is not necessarily regulated as stringently as some would like, or now do we want it? The other part of it is every investor in this scenario should do whatever it is legally in their power to do to recover their investment. However that turns out, we don't know, but it is their obligation.
Including jumping on the plane.
Well, if jumping on the plane coming to the Bahamas is going to get them but if jumping on the plane is going to, and coming to the Bahamas is going to get them their money, God bless them, right? Mission accomplished. I don't know that it will, but the point I'm making is whatever legal, reasonable means, they should be seeking to recover their funds. Yeah.
I have a comment on the screen now from Marissa. She says, your guest underscores a point that I made recently as well. This is more than anything else a matter of mismanagement on the part of FTX. There are some who are blaming the Bahamas government, that they didn't do enough to, or I shouldn't say the Bahamas government, but the Bahamas regulators, that they didn't do enough to ensure that this was a legit operation. And so now people are looking to them. I've seen articles talking about Bahamians saying, the government is always looking out for everybody else but us, and we need the government to step in, and we need the government to do this, and we need the government to do the next. But the government wasn't around when you made a decision to invest in this company. And as hard as that sounds, is the government really responsible in any way, or even if you don't want to say the government, are the regulatory agencies here in the Bahamas responsible for your losses? I mean, it sounds harsh. But again, that's why we're calling this show The Risks, Responsibilities, and Rewards of Investing, because once something like this happens, who do you turn to? Do you have anybody to turn to recoup your funds?
Well, I think your questions with regard to today's title, the risks, the rewards, the obligations, right? The responsibilities are all going to be part of this learning ecosystem, right? Because the investor is going to have something to learn. The regulatory sector is going to have a lot to learn. Policymakers are going to have a lot to learn. The Bahamas may, by and large, become a major case study for how crypto is managed and regulated going forward, which could prove healthy for future crypto investors globally and domestically. But at the end of the day, we really as a people in the Bahamas have to grow up in so many ways, right? On one hand, we want the government to stay out of our business. On the other hand, we want the free right to do what we want to do. But then when things go bad, we want to go to the government to find a solution for which we never sought their advice or approval to do. And an investment is just like that. I mean, when you go to your investment house, and there are several investment houses, in this same country, they have rules that govern them, right? When things go bad, there are people you go and you sit and you talk to. You have an attorney, you have all of these resources and as a point of recourse. It is, for me, as much as I sympathize with those who've lost, I have a very difficult time understanding the argument that the government is responsible for ensuring that I get my money back. And no one has made the point or made the case, and I've read more arguments in the last 3 weeks than I care to talk about. No one has made the case that the government owes me my money as an investor. No one. Now, that may be a part of the crying foul that things have gone bad, and to whom should I turn? But that's why you retain legal advice when you invest. That's why you retain investment advisory advisors before you invest, because these help to prepare you for the realities of what you plan to do or what you just did, right? And we have to get to the point where, if you want to play in this space requires being informed. This space requires some legal advice. This place requires that I must understand, if things go bad, what recourse do I have? Now, when, back in the day when we were growing up and Kentucky chicken was the big thing, you remember that? I mean, you did well when you went and got a Kentucky snack, right? Well, guess what? It was great. Everybody wanted it. Nobody asked if the way they prepared Kentucky was going to be good for my health, or pizza, or hamburger, or hot dog, or whatever it is. It was only years later people started to ask, "Hey, wait a minute, why am I putting on all this weight? Why am I feeling this way every time I eat a hot dog? Or every time I feel, or why is my cholesterol high?" When it was really great to do it, when everybody was promoting that it was a thing to do, and whether it was cigarettes or alcohol or anything else, we didn't ask those questions. When did the questions start to get asked? After it started to rain.
After people started to get sick.
The Bible talks about wisdom, right? After people started to get sick, and people started to feel bad, and people started to get cancer and high blood pressure and high cholesterol and all of this other stuff, and the doctor says, well, if you keep eating this stuff, this is what's going to happen. You're eventually going to die. The point I'm making is this. We can't want to be practitioners or behavior that looks like first world without the responsibility of it. Now, does that mean that our regulators don't have responsibilities? Not at all. Does it mean that our policymakers don't have responsibilities and obligations to us as investors? Not at all. Because it's their job to ensure that if I am being permitted to invest in this sector, that there's a proper regulatory framework that is properly monitored to ensure that I have a reasonably responsible ecosystem within to work and to invest. No policy guarantees you I will get your money back. No policy anywhere.
Yeah.
In that space.
Tough pill to swallow. Tough pill to swallow, but it is what it is. Okay, we're going to take a quick break. And Jeff, I know you have to pick up kids, and hopefully you'll stay on the line.
Actually,
even
my son is already in the car and he's already home. And that's the beauty of being mobile, right? So I'm going to switch platforms to my laptop during the break. And I'll just say this. My picking up my son is a part of my commitment to him every day, right? And thankfully that technology allows me to be able to do that. Yes, technology allows me the ability to do that, to meet that obligation and still participate in your program. So I'll switch right during the break, and I'll be right back with you.
Wonderful. All right, let's give Jeff an opportunity to do that. We're going to take a commercial break, and when we come back, we're going to continue the conversation with Jeffrey Beckles about investment. We're talking risks, responsibilities, and rewards. Stay with us. This is GPS.
For all your building needs, it's Carib Construction and Project Management on Gladstone Road. We build it all: schools, homes, hotels, and more, including structures requiring a Phase 3 electrical contractor. We also provide project management services. The first step towards your dream building begins at Carib Construction and Project Management. Call us at 376-1556 or 341-4466.
Your body's immune system is under constant pressure from things like stress, lack of exercise, and toxins in the environment. It's crucial to be proactive and support your immune system with the nutrients it needs to function effectively. But it's often hard to get these nutrients from food alone. Introducing fast-acting Zinc Plus Immune Support by Longevity. Unlike zinc-only supplements, Zinc Plus Immune Support builds on the proven power of zinc and adds complementary nutrients to give your immune system extra support. Vitamin D helps balance the effects of zinc, while our proprietary blend of natural fruit and root extracts provides the extra help your immune system needs to work against daily stressors. And we've included Longevity's exclusive plant-derived minerals to give your body the minerals it needs, but can't get from food alone. And because Zinc Plus Immune Support is delivered in a great-tasting, sugar-free, berry-flavored lozenge, it encourages quicker absorption of all these nutrients into your body. Zinc Plus Immune Support. Zinc plus the extra support your body needs to promote a healthy immune system. To learn more, contact your Longevity associate.
Welcome to Sunshine Auto, the hardest place on the planet for rims, paints, and tires.
We are your auto superstore for rims, Lexani, Azaras, Trueform, Western, Lux, Fuel, Tracklight, Tough, Rough Racing, Velocity, Mud, All-Terrain, and low-profile tires. Cars, homes, and commercial window tinting. At Sunshine Auto, we put God first and customer is king.
Blessed love.
It's gotten harder and harder to get your daily requirement of vital nutrients from food alone. Without additional vitamin and nutrient support, your health and well-being can suffer drastically. That's why Z Radical was specifically formulated. It combines a blend of antioxidant-rich vitamins, minerals, and botanicals with the protective powers of fucoidan to help fill the gaps from lack of nutrients in your foods. The core of Z Radical is fucoidan, a naturally occurring polysaccharide that helps stimulate immune reaction, protecting you against inflammation and oxidative stress. We harvest this powerful mineral-rich nutrient from brown seaweed, harvested only from the world's most pristine ocean waters to ensure the purest quality. It's then extracted using cold process technology to ensure maximum levels of bioavailability. Then we add essential vitamins that help to protect your cardiovascular and nervous systems and are crucial for optimal immune and neurological function. Z Radical also includes a proprietary blend of delicious antioxidant-rich fruits and berries. This great-tasting combination helps your body combat free radical imbalances that can contribute to a variety of degenerative conditions like arthritis and heart disease. Z Radical. Experience the power of fucoidan with antioxidant-rich berries, 8 essential vitamins, and more to provide you with potent health benefits. To learn more, contact your Longevity associate.
Welcome back to GPS Global Paradigm Shift on Global 99.5 FM. Michelle Malcolm in your company, along with Jeffrey Beckles, who is here to help us break down this whole question of the risks, responsibilities, and rewards when it comes to investing. The telephone numbers to call: 3260271. 3260271, 3260271, or 3260272, 3260272. One more time, 3260272, and the WhatsApp line for text messages, text messages only is 801-0271. 801-0271. So our Attorney General, Ryan Pinder, gave a national address, I think it was on Sunday evening, explaining the position of the Bahamas as it relates to this whole FTX situation. And interestingly enough, I've read articles of persons who, from outside the country, interpreted what he had to say as the Attorney General of the Bahamas going on the defensive, as opposed to accepting the explanations that he would have given, as it relates to where the Bahamas is at and the swift actions that were taken by the regulatory body here in the Bahamas, in the wake of this collapse. What were your thoughts, Jeffrey, on what the Attorney General had to say, and whether or not you believe that his comments helped to, whether his comments helped or hurt the Bahamas' reputation as it relates to a regulatory agency and any responsibility on the part thereof?
Well, I think there has to be an appreciation for the fact that a lot of people have horses in the race, right? As you mentioned earlier, the losses are pretty much stacked up around the world. It's not just in one jurisdiction. So there are going to be persons who would have preferred to hear the Attorney General say, well, all of you who have lost money, send us an email. We'll put you on the list, and here's the date that you can pick up your check, right? That's certainly not what his responsibility is. His responsibility is to assure the domestic and regional and global investment community that we do have the regulations in place to monitor these types of entities, and to ensure that the confidence level in the investor community remains high. Now, that's his job. Now, whether he did that, I don't know, because we don't know what the feedback is. But I think the comments that we would see were driven by people who had a different expectation, because what they want is the government of the Bahamas to accept the responsibility for refunding them their investments, and that is not what the role of the government is. There's a reason why the central bank insures our deposits, and Bahamians need to understand that. The reason why our deposits are insured because the central bank, as the custodian of my deposits, is saying to the Bahamian people, we are going to guarantee that your deposits are in place, and so if something was to go wrong, we will insure your deposits, right? That is the reason why it is important, as I alluded to earlier, to understand the difference between backed currencies and non-backed currencies, all right? You buy a car, you expect the car to have 4 wheels, right? But if you choose to buy a car with 2 wheels, and then you say, well, I ain't got no gas mileage because this car is a piece of junk and it don't drive right and it's dragging all over the place. That's what you choose. But you know that there's a reason why you have four wheels on a vehicle. And so I think it's important for Bahamians to become a lot more attuned to what our financial environment provides you and the safety it provides you. Now, if you want, it's no different than you growing up as a child. Your parents set rules, and the rules are there to protect you as well, right? If you want to operate outside those, then the risk is yours because you can get beaten, right? You can get punished. We talk a lot about, Michelle, about the financial literacy gap in the Bahamas. But one thing I want to point out is that when we refer to that gap, who do we typically refer to?
The less fortunate.
The less fortunate, the poor, the inner city, the unlearned, as we call them, the uneducated. But, truth be told, in this country, the level of financial literacy is not peculiar to one's socioeconomic status. The level of ignorance exists across the board in this country with regard to financial literacy. And by the way, when one monitors the evolution of the financial space, the gap that we used to talk about, that we have been talking about for 30 years, is even wider yet. And this is a perfect example of it. It sounds nice. It looks great. Oh, that's, I always tell people like alcohol, it's a sexy gal in the room until you go talk to her. Everybody wants a sexy girl in the room, but she named alcohol. Remember when crack was a big thing? You think you don't see the danger in crack until you go look at this nice gal in the corner, you want to dance with her, and then all of a sudden you realize, hey, wait a minute, that was a bad choice. So the point I'm making is we have to be honest enough in our dialogue to understand that financial literacy is not peculiar to one's or not defined by one's socioeconomic state. It is important that we educate ourselves on these newfangled, as one lady put it the other day, these newfangled things that are out there, these solutions that are out there. And in my business at Island Pay, we run a business, and we're highly regulated, and we're highly transparent. You put $100 in your wallet, you know there's $100 to go get. And if for some reason that you can't, and it doesn't happen, but for some reason you walk up to us and tell us, well, $20 is missing from the $100 that I put in there yesterday, guess what? We can go back and tell you we can go back and tell you didn't put $100 there, you put 80. Okay? That's what but you know that as a customer because that's your expectation. That's one of the things that drew you to our service, because you knew that we can go, we know what we're going to get when we get your wallet and get your card and use it. We know what comes with that. That's what being in this environment does. So it's important for us then that as Bahamians, that we seek to really become more savvy and really become more learned. But as far as the minister's response, his response was to assure the international community that we have the regulations in place, we have the capacity to manage and to monitor, and that was it. And those persons who felt that, well, his address fell short of my expectations, well, that's all it was, expectations.
You use the example of you use the example of what happens when you taking on the responsibility, what happens when you decide to drink. I want to take it a little further. I remember hearing a comedian sometime in the past talking about how when you go out to the club and you're drinking, everybody looks good. And you go and you take home this girl because you had a couple too many, and then you wake up the next morning and you look on the side and you think, oh my God, what have I done? So what was this situation where people were drunk by the persona that SPF and the crew were putting out, that I'm a billionaire and I'm giving away all this money for charity, and I'm the good guy and I want to give away all this. Were they influenced unduly by all what he was putting out there, and then you wake up the next morning and you realize, oh my God, what I lay down with? Do you think that was the case here?
It started before that, Michelle, and just respectfully, I'll say this whole talk about crypto and the environment in which it was allowed to operate in, and there are no barriers, and there are no limitations, and everybody was excited and enamored with the idea. Now, nothing wrong with the idea, but if you look at the idea in and of itself, it suited what a lot of people wanted, right? It's kind of loose fitting. It's kind of, I could go there and do all manner of things, and my coin is going to get it's going to triple in value by tomorrow and quadruple in value, and then it was a challenge to some, and some people love that challenge, but with that challenge comes risk. So we became enamored with the idea that I could do this thing, okay, and not be told how, what, when, or why. And so our
Okay.
fetish with crypto started long before he got here, because Bahamians, by and large, were investing in crypto long before they came here, long before they came. And
So we were sipping on
if
we
you
were sipping on that cocktail for a little while, and
for a little
when he
while,
came
but
with his charisma, we went from the
you know what?
cocktail to the hard stuff. We have a
Okay,
cell phone call on the line, Jeff. So let's take this
okay.
caller and then make that point you were about to make. Caller, welcome to GPS.
Yeah. Hi, Michelle. I'm Jeff.
Hello.
Yeah, I wanted to call in basically to give my condolences to you,
Thank
Michelle,
you. Thank
and
you.
your family, your loved ones.
Thank you.
It saddened me to hear about that. And my dad is still with me, and he's of age,
Mm-hmm.
and thankfully he received the Lord late in age, but he did. And that's our hope, that when our loved ones leave us, that we can believe that we're going to meet them in another place, in a good place, in a better place,
Mm-hmm.
in eternity with God.
Right.
And so I'm believing that for us, for you and your loved ones.
Thank you.
And it's a joy in that. And yes, we have to go through the process of letting go, but still rejoicing in the time you had with them.
Right. Thank you
Yeah.
so much. I appreciate that.
Yes, and so you hang in there, and you're being quite a trooper, being in there on behalf of the nation to get these concerns out. And I appreciate you on behalf of the nation for doing that.
Thank you. Thank you
You
very
take
much.
care. Okay.
All right. Thank you for calling. The numbers to call 3260271, 3260271, 3260272, 3260272, WhatsApp 8010271, 8010271. My guest today is Jeffrey Beckles. We are talking about investment, the risk, the responsibilities, the rewards, because in this whole fallout of FTX, a lot of people are looking all over the place as to who is responsible for helping them get their money back. And the question is, who is responsible for helping you get your money back? Is anybody responsible for helping you to get your money back? Or do you just lick your wounds and, look at it as Christy would say, a teachable moment? For some, for some was a hefty teachable moment. That's a heavy lesson to learn. And when you talk about the amount of money that has been lost, it appears. But the question is, who is responsible? Is anybody responsible for helping these investors to get their money back?
One thing I
Go ahead,
wanted to
Jeff.
mention before you took that last call, and we certainly thank them for their expression of sympathy and support. It's important. Bahamians, there are Bahamians, or there are some potentially even listening to your show today, who lost money in crypto before this whole fiasco, right? And it's important that they begin to share some insights, because they lost before this calamity that's on our shores now, right? As unfortunate as it is. Why is it important for them to speak? Because it helps for the average Bahamian to frame the right perspective on investment and on the whole idea of investing in this way, right? Those are the conversations that we need to encourage Bahamians who are prepared to add something of value to the conversation. I get it. Nobody feels good about losing money, especially the tune of monies that people are claiming that they would have lost. But the value of that individual Bahamian who lost money prior to this fiasco or this tragedy taking place is critically important to helping us understand how we move forward. The rewards are great when investments go well. Listen, some of you invest in homes, your whole life savings in getting your first home, only to find that you have a bad contractor. And sometimes you don't find that out till 2-3 years later into your house when the walls start to split and the foundation starts to move, right? Again, we have these experiences of investment and risk, right? But there's a recourse. and every investment should be taken in light of what happens in the event. And it's okay if you find out that you don't have any recourse, like an unsecured creditor, right? It's okay. Or you have less, right? It's okay to find it out, because at the end of the day, you then have a decision to make. Will I continue or proceed with my investment, knowing that if this thing doesn't work, I have nobody to share the burden of responsibility with? It's okay to know that. What is not okay is to invest, make the investment on your own accord, and then expect for somebody else to bail you out. Now, in this, I said that there are lessons to be learned. Are there lessons to be learned from a regulatory standpoint? I have no doubt in my mind. Will it result in us changing? I have no doubt in my mind that whatever lessons are that we will learn will improve the way we do things. And that's what trials are all about. That's what mistakes are all about. That's what calamity does. It inflicts, but it also exposes, and it also creates an opportunity to improve or to grow, right? And so at the end of the day, there are going to be rewards out of this, because we are going to be a better jurisdiction. We are going to be more prudent investors. We are going to be better because of it. But what is important, though, is let the process run its course. If we're going to look for a better Bahamas, if we're going to look for a stronger investment community here in the Bahamas, we must be fair to those responsible and let them do their jobs. Because at the end of the day, the truth can come out anyhow, right? And so what do we do with that truth? We ain't gonna sit there for the next 10 years, it was your fault, it was his fault, it was her fault. No. We are a financial dependent jurisdiction, financial services rather. Then it's important for us to use this opportunity to figure out how best we can be better. At the end of the day, there's going to be enough blame to go around. The question is, where is it going to rest? I don't know, because the matter hasn't been concluded. But we do know this, there are going to be opportunities.
All right, let me read one of the comments we have on the screen now. It says, this one of the reasons Binance pulled out investors if they don't have law firm going after their funds. Most have to take a loss, and a few won't get a resolve for the next 5 to 7 years. They have to create new laws and regulations to address digital currency and cryptocurrency. I don't know if you understood what the person was saying, but if so, what is your response to that comment?
I didn't quite get the gist of what they were saying, right? But please understand, a lot of there's a significant regulation around back to digital currencies. Okay, like our Sand dollar, which at Island Pay, all of our solutions are Sand dollar enabled and supported. We stand behind it because the central bank is standing behind us, right? So, so to that extent, there's a significant amount of regulation surrounding digital currencies like Sand dollar. As it relates to some of the other instruments that are there, like a crypto, where there are some challenges, we're not comparing apples to apples at all. As a matter of fact, I challenge anybody to go out there and find any central bank that backs crypto, any in the world, and then go out there and draw a list of all central banks that back their fiat currency or their digital currency. And then you'll see the difference.
So one of the things that the Attorney General did in his address was he said, for those of you who are criticizing the jurisdiction for not, and I'm obviously paraphrasing, but not doing a good enough job, as a regulator, he pretty much praised the Bahamas as being among the first around the world to actually put a framework in place to manage this whole crypto space. Do you believe, though, that in the light of the lessons that have been learned through this fallout, that perhaps the authorities need to look at shoring up the regulation even more to give the regulatory body more bite to do more to protect investors, or is that just not a reality?
Well, let's first ask the question. Well, let me put it this way. We do have the DARE Act and some other supporting legislation. The question, though, is who has
Yes.
determined what the deficiencies are?
Mm-hmm.
Interesting question, right? But everybody's
Mm-hmm.
calling for strengthening, but have we determined what the weaknesses are? What if there are gaps?
Mm-hmm.
And that's why I said earlier, it's fundamental to our success that we at least allow ourselves to determine if there are gaps and if there are opportunities for us to strengthen or recreate. What are they? They have not been identified because this thing is still unfolding, right? When in fact, you may find that much of what has happened has the DARE Act may or may not have little impact on it.
Mm.
So I think, to those persons who are advocating for changes in the act, well, let's first find out what the deficiencies are before we advocate for change. I think that's the wise, practical, sensible thing to do before we go change. Let's figure out what's broken.
Good point. Could that be they say that for every cloud there's a silver lining. Could that be the silver lining of this fallout, an opportunity for us to take a closer look, to examine what we have, and with the view to fixing any chinks in the armor or any cracks that may exist through which entities can fall? Jeff, can you hear me?
Okay, now I can hear you. I lost you. Ask that question again. You said something about silver lining, silver cloud, and silver
Yeah,
lining.
yeah.
Every cloud is silver lining.
You were saying the first thing we need to do is to determine, people are asking for change, but the first thing we need to do is to determine what needs to be changed, paying closer attention to the act itself. So my question is, based on what you just said, is that the silver lining to this dark cloud, shedding light on the DARE Act and us taking a closer look at it with a view to possibly shoring it up to ensure that going forward there are no cracks or loopholes through which persons can get to benefit themselves to the disadvantage of their investors?
Well, I think this is all part and parcel of what we would wish for a good outcome, right? Because remember, lessons learned can be at any level, and they can be multi-leveled, in other words. They can be various, right? I think any rational thinking Bahamian wants, if nothing else, a good outcome in that. And what is a good outcome? And the good outcome is that, one, we can ensure that the reputation of the Bahamas remains a very confident investment community outside the Bahamas, right? Two, that we have learned some things that can contribute to strengthening policy, regulations, etc. And then three, as we take a look at the whole crypto space, right? What's required of us to enable us to be in this space and make it as safe as we possibly can, because it's never going to be 100% safe. No jurisdiction has any 100% safe investment protocol, none, right? But I think our approach should be that at the end of the day, we want to be able to ensure that the Bahamas remains a very safe and secure, highly regulated jurisdiction that international and local investors can feel confident and safe in. I think that this could be a silver lining, but it also could be a silver lining to this relation to what do we need to know as consumer investors about investing on this scale. We can't go from where we are to playing on a global playing field without taking some licks. That's just life. That ain't peculiar to us. That ain't peculiar to no group of people. That's just life, right? You want to learn to fly a plane, you can make some mistakes. Well, hopefully one that you don't make the one that will not allow you to make another one. But if you can drive a car, when your daughter gets to the point where she's old enough to drive a car, you have to be prepared to let your daughter take the wheel, and you may have to be prepared for her to have a fender bender or two, right? So the point is, there's the potential for multiple lessons to be learned, multiple silver linings. What is important though, and I'll repeat it until this whole thing is resolved. It's important that we let the process run, right? Don't try to run ahead of the process, right? And those of us who believe that we know everything about everything, we're gonna have to learn to settle ourselves in, understand that we don't know everything about this whole matter. Let those persons responsible for their various responsibilities execute their duties, and then at the end of the day, there will be conclusions.
Right. Okay, we have to take a quick commercial break. On the other side of the break, we're going to continue this conversation with Jeffrey Beckles. We're talking investment risk, rewards, responsibilities, particularly as it relates to this whole fallout with FTX. Is anybody responsible for getting your money back? Or is this just a tough lesson to learn? We'll be back after these words from our sponsors. Stay with us.
Blood sugar levels play a key role in your appetite, weight gain, and overall health. When you have a blood sugar spike, you can feel confused, dizzy, and even have increased cravings. Eating carbohydrates, sugary or fatty foods, and not exercising can all cause blood sugar spikes. But now you have help in managing blood sugar levels. Sweeties by Youngevity was designed to help support healthy blood sugar levels so you can power through your day. It's a synergistic blend of minerals, herbs, and nutrients that have been proven to support healthy blood sugar levels. Sweeties includes chromium, an essential trace mineral that's known for its contribution to healthy blood sugar levels and improved metabolism of carbohydrates, fats, and proteins. Cinnamon bark has been included for its naturally occurring antioxidants and support of a healthy heart. And we've even added gymnema. It's been used in Ayurveda for centuries to help promote healthy blood sugar. All the ingredients in Sweeties work together to give the best support available for blood sugar control. Sweeties, the blood sugar support supplement from Youngevity that helps control cravings and manage blood sugar levels through your day. To learn more, contact your Youngevity associate.
Welcome to Sunshine Auto, the hardest place on the planet for rims, paints, and tires.
We are your auto superstore for rims, Lexani, Azaras, Trueform, Western, Lux, Fuel, Tracklight, Tough, Rough Racing, Velocity, Mud, All-Terrain, and low-profile tires. Cars, homes, and commercial window tinting. At Sunshine Auto, we put God first and customer is king.
Blessed love.
As you age, factors like health, weight, diet, and lifestyle can all impact your bones, joints, and general mobility. Even everyday exercise can lead to wear and tear on your body. Over time, you might start to experience stiffness or pain due to damaged joints or connective tissue. Ultimate Glucogel by Youngevity was created to help you limit the effects of wear on your joints. It delivers a daily dose of collagen-rich gelatin your body needs for joint elasticity and maintenance. Ultimate Glucogel contains a 1-to-1 ratio of gelatin and glucosamine sulfate, which is a key building block of your bone matrix, cartilage, ligaments, tendons, and connective tissue. Gelatin's unique blend of amino acids not only help with muscle and joint health, but also has been shown to provide additional benefits for the brain, skin, and hair. Ultimate Glucogel. Natural, optimal daily support for joint health. To learn more, contact your Youngevity associate.
Welcome back to GPS, Global Paradigm Shift on Global 99.5 FM. Michelle Malcolm here in your company along with my guest, Jeffrey Beckles. We are talking about investment, the risk, the rewards, the responsibilities, particularly in light of this whole fallout of FTX. Who is responsible, if anyone, for helping you get your money back if you're one of the persons who lost some money in this deal? And, you know, we have some Bahamians caught up in this apparently. We have people all over the world who invested in FTX who have lost some quite a lot of money. I spoke earlier about Tom Brady and his wife to the tune of $650 million. I read somewhere about Jordan, I believe it is, Michael Jordan losing 10 million. I mean, people lost a lot of money in this deal. The thing, though, is people like Kevin O'Leary I mean, nobody wants to lose money, but some people have multiple streams of income. So even though they kind of annoyed that they lost a sizable amount of money in this deal, they still got a lot left from investments and other sources. So they ain't happy, but they ain't about to jump off the bridge either because they would have lost everything. But you have some people, on the other hand, who would have invested so heavily in this, who didn't have the luxury of, having multiple streams of income upon which they could fall back. And these people are hurting and wondering, how I can get my money back. Now, in the meantime,
Excuse me.
we are hearing, Jeff, that FTX is now starting to pay some of its employees some of the monies that were owed to them. I read something today about them now paying their employees, because their employees, as you'd imagine, were not paid for the past 3 weeks since this thing broke. And so now at least some of their employees are going to be paid, brought up to speed as far as their money is concerned. But nothing being said about those who would have invested those monies, their funds, their hard-earned savings. So whereas we're happy for the employees, including some Bahamians who are finally going to get a paycheck, that says nothing to the Bahamians and others around the world who would have invested their money in FTX. The challenge is, they may be legally, right? They may be. So can you argue that they were legally responsible for paying their staff, but not so much the investors? Is that the right lesson to learn from all of this?
Well, let me just say this at the outset, that that's a sheep and goat conversation, because it's two very distinct tracks that have nothing to do with each other, right? An employer's obligation to its employees versus its obligations to its investors are very, very, very different. Losses are always relative. So the guy who has $10 million to lose and don't feel it, and the guy who has $100 and that's half his life, it's all relative, right? But let me go back to what I said earlier. I'm happy that Bahamian employees are finally being paid, right? We would expect that from this entity, as well as we would expect it from Bahamas, Kentucky, Burger King, Atlantis, whatever. We would expect the same thing, that the commitment to their employees be settled, right? Whether it's termination pay or redundancy pay, whatever. If a company is closing and they're going to go out of business, we have a reasonable expectation that under the law, every one of those employees will be properly compensated for the time that they were there. So that's reasonably and lawfully expected. However, could it be then on the other side of the coin, these persons who would have invested, could it be that they are listed as unsecured? Okay, there's a huge difference between the obligation to the employee and the obligation to the investor. So it's not an argument to be made, because those two ends will never meet.
Right.
Then
the point that you're making is they have a legal obligation to their employees.
Their legal obligation
go ahead and finish.
under the law says if you're going to go out of business, bankruptcy, whatever it is, you have certain obligations to your employees, because that's a different level of contractual relationship that is not governed by an investor relationship.
Got it.
Okay. The other thing that we must keep in mind is that this matter is multi-jurisdictional, right? It is multi-agency. It is an extremely complex matter to be resolved. There is literally no easy conclusion to this. So, truth be told, Bahamians who are not very familiar with bankruptcy filings and the procedures and the processes for that filing, here's another opportunity for us to learn, because the truth be told, we could be talking about this for several more years.
Yeah. You know, Jeff,
Because
I found
of the
it
complexity
interesting.
of it.
Right. I found it interesting that there are entities out there who have decided to take legal action against the influencers who were, I guess, hired by FTX to influence persons to invest. People like the Brady's, people like what's his name, Steph Curry, and other big name celebrities that were used by FTX. You saw the commercials and all of this. And I find it interesting that there's this class action lawsuit now against the influencers who appeared in these ads, etc. So people are going after them. Is it because the company itself, based on what you're explaining to us, do they have, I don't know if this is the right terminology, but do they have legal protection from their investors in the case of a fallout of this nature, particularly seeing that they have entered into bankruptcy? How does that work?
I don't want to trivialize the fact that these people have lost money, right? But you know,
Yeah.
in this global space we live in, anybody could sue anybody, right?
Okay.
And suing people is the first response. And what we do is we do file a class action suit, and we start figuring out who ain't involved. We're getting everybody involved. We're gonna list everybody until we figure out who all has culpability, right? The other part of this is you still have a decision to make, though. I mean, do you hear drug addicts suing their drug dealer? I don't mean to trivialize it, but the fact of the matter is, what you're saying is, I'm going to sue you because you told me the product was good and it's not. And that's part of the reason why I say we could very well be talking about this for years, because many lawsuits are filed that they don't necessarily have merit, right? But I don't know that that's going to be a very rational way to resolve this, because Madison Avenue is Madison Avenue because they sell what? They sell ads, right? They put a woman in a skimpy bathing suit to sell cigarettes or to sell beer or to sell fried chicken, or they put some muscle bound dude to sell some new shake, some energy shake or whatever, and you don't like it, it gives you gas. I mean, seriously, at the end of the day, you can sue him because he got paid to tell you, drink this milkshake, it's green in color and comes out, it makes you feel like a champion, then it makes you feel like a dud. I mean, the fact of the matter is, it's become a normal course of response in this world in which we live in. We live in a very litigious world, and that's typically the response. I'm going to sue everybody. Now, the question is, does my suit have merit? And that's where the rubber's going to have to meet the road.
Right.
So it doesn't matter
Jason,
who said it was good. I still had the judge, any reasonable judge would say, look, you know, you still made a decision based on what, though? He told me to. Let
me read a comment from one of my Facebook viewers. It says, "Don't feel bad. They gamble and lost. Many of us warned of the scam. Digital currency is not backed by a physical asset. People invested in air. It's just like an ASU. It was a matter of time the whole to take off with the perk." How do you respond to that, Jeff? You can take the comment down now, Jeff. How do you respond to that?
There is some value and merit in the fact that, remember I said earlier in one of my responses, the questions that are being asked today were available to be asked a year ago, 2 years ago. Some of us chose not to ask those questions, right? Because we kind of like the sexiness of it. Man, this is great. We could do this and nobody could tell me what to do. I could trade crypto and I could trade my coins and do all kinds of things, and I could speculate and I could make a ton of money. And the glamour of that, the allure of that jaded my common sense approach to say, let me ask the right questions, right? So again, it's part of the lesson that we have to learn, right? Listen, I go tomorrow to buy a car. I want to buy a car. So I go to X dealer and I said, okay, I want to buy a new car. On the research, I find that these cars are prone to catch fire, right? But I still buy the car. Well, excuse me. Well, how do I? And then the dealer says, but with the warranty doesn't cover A, B, or C, or it only covers A. What are you going to do? We have an opportunity to ask questions. We should ask questions. When we have an opportunity to do research, we should do research. So, you know, again, people are going to do what they do, right? But we manage risk, right? I said losses are interpreted and they're relative to what you lose. We have Bahamians gambling every single day, every day of the week.
This is true.
And are losing their houses, they're losing their jobs, they're losing their children, they're losing their families, they're losing their cars, they're losing the very there are fellows who bet the very clothes they're wearing. There were some guys playing in the golf tournament a couple of weeks back. There was a guy, decent golfer, he was in over his head. He lost the very clubs he was playing with, in a bet, because he ran out of money, right? And so he says, you know what? I can bet my clubs. And he lost. There are Bahamians who gamble every single day of the week and lose lots of money every day in this country. How is it any different than if you decide to take the risk of gambling, or rather investing in a high-risk space? Well, on what level do you cry foul? And I think this goes back to our opening conversation, Michelle. There is diligence that must be done on my part, the investor's part. I must understand what the obligations are of my investment and the people that I'm investing with, and then I must also understand the risk. I was talking to a young couple the other day. A young guy came to see me because I do family life counseling, and the guy said to me, he says, "I need to ask you a question." I said, "What?" He says, "What do I do with my wife?" I said, "What do you mean, what do you do with your wife?" He said, "Yeah, she doesn't go home." I said, "Well, she ain't supposed to go home. You marry her, right?" He goes, "Yeah, but no, real talk, dead serious. As sure as that black here talking to you on this station today, right?" They had been married for 3 weeks, and in his mind, he expected her to go home. I kid you not. Mind you, he was quite sober when he went down to downtown and paid for his marriage license. He was quite sober when he was being counseled. He was quite sober when he stood at the altar and said, "I do." He was quite sober on his honeymoon. But the guy said, "I actually thought she would go home." But I said, "No, she, after today, brother, she is home." Sometimes our realities don't set in until then.
It could be a case, because what you just described to me sounds to me like I want the rewards, and I'm taking a risk. I'm taking this risk because I want the rewards, but I don't necessarily want the responsibility that comes with the risk. I just want the reward. Is that what we see happening here?
But isn't that part of human nature, right? We want the best of both worlds. We want to be able to have the fanfare, the party, the good laughter, and the great time, but we don't want to share in any part of the rain when the raindrops start. We don't want that. And it's human nature to try and blame somebody else. And where am I? I am typically the last person on the list of blame, because I always want somebody else to be responsible. Now, in a law-abiding environment, those responsible should always be held accountable. Let's make that very clear. That's why I said in the Bahamas, we can't have the best of both worlds, where we want the rule of law, but then we don't want anybody to tell me what to do.
Right.
Or how to behave.
You don't want the responsibility
No, we don't want the
Right.
responsibility of the consequences of my actions, right? And that's a
Mhm,
fight in this
mhm.
country called the Bahamas, where we don't want to be held responsible. We don't want the consequences of our actions. We don't want to be told, listen, you have to bear that responsibility. That's just, and we seem to be good at that. But on the other hand, we cannot expect them to be global players with a domestic mindset that says, I can behave in a certain way, just don't hold me responsible for it. When you have the opportunity to know better. Now, does that mean that every investment is foolproof and fail-proof? Not at all. Because during COVID, many people lost money. Investors too. In fact, what is interesting is, if you noticed, if you read the business reports like we all do, there are many people who made hundreds and hundreds of millions of dollars during COVID, when others were saying, well, what hit me?
Yeah.
Okay, so there's a distinct balance that has to take place as well in that discussion.
No, you're absolutely right. You're absolutely right. I often quote something that the late Dr. Miles Monroe used to say when he was talking about how people respond to difficulties financially or inflation or whatever. I would say, no money's left the earth. So it may have been where tons of people lost their savings, lost their jobs, lost this, lost the next. But while they were busy losing, somebody else was busy gaining. The money didn't leave the earth; it just shifted. It just shifted.
Bahamians will become smarter, We will learn from this.
Well, too much, too little, too late.
I don't think so, because if you never bucked your toe or tripped down, you would learn walk more vigilantly, right? If you never, I mean,
say that again.
Listen,
Say that again, Jeff.
If you
Say that
never
again
bucked,
because you sort of went into a matrix.
if you never bucked
Go
your
ahead.
toe or tripped, right, you wouldn't pay attention to how you walk. But you get up in the middle of the night and hit your foot on the corner of that bed, you can say some things that you probably don't say on a normal day. But you're going to learn, eventually you will learn how to get up in the middle of the night with one eye closed and navigate that room, because you can measure where that bedpost is, because you're not hitting your foot no more, because it hurt. And so I don't say it's too much, too little, too late. I think it's a great opportunity, and you can't have growth without a struggle, right? You got to have some rough weather in your life in order to learn some things, right? That's life. That's life 101. So this while this is tragic to many, what has happened, right? It is not the end of the world. We must learn from this. We must get up from this. We must plan to become smarter, more educated, more informed, more prudent, more vigilant. If we're going to use this exercise not just as a point of failure, but a point of what did we learn from this individually, as a country, as a community? What did we learn from this, and how are we going to be better because of this one incident? Because guess what? This incident has occurred thousands of times in the Bahamas, It was just not as magnified.
Wow. That's a powerful statement.
Because it's true. We have failed many times on the job, in our families, in church, in business. This is not the first investment we have failed with, or we've had people fail with. The point I'm making is the numbers make it a lot larger. A couple of years ago, there was a debacle in Exuma with an event, right? Remember that?
Yeah, I remember.
Did we stop having events?
Certainly not.
Did Bahamians stop buying tickets to these events? No. we just learn to be a little bit more diligent and more prudent.
It's been said that a lot of foreigners, especially, are asking the question as to why SBF has not been picked up by the authorities. Why is he still at large? I don't know if at large is the right terminology to use because it makes it sound like he's a fugitive. And from what we can tell, he's not. And I do believe that the police officials have said, well, we don't have a formal complaint against him, so we have no grounds to pick him up for anything. Would it make a difference if there was a formal complaint by Bahamians against him? Would that make any difference at all in terms of the possibility of recouping some of their investment, or would that just make him responsible from a standpoint of the legal and what's the word I'm looking for? The courts, but not necessarily returning any funds to investors?
No, that ain't the question to ask. You know what the question to be asked?
What?
Has he been accused of breaking the law that will cause him to be arrested in the first place? Right? Has a complaint in the courts of the Bahamas, or the police rather, been filed against him? So when you ask the question, when the person asks the question about being at large, right? Well, you can't ask about a person being at large when they haven't been said to have committed any crime in the jurisdiction, and no one has filed a complaint against him.
Right.
So why should he be arrested? Just like you. I mean, can someone just desire that you be arrested because they don't like your show? No. So process. We must give way to process. If I were to come to your house tonight, walk into your house and slap you, right? And you tell your friend, and your friend says, and he ain't lock up yet. Well, what needs to happen for me to get locked up? Michelle needs to go and file a complaint at the police and say to them, they can ask you two questions. You filing this complaint for action, or you filing this for information? If you filing it for action, they will arrest Jeffrey Beckles and charge me with abuse or assault. Okay? Process. We can't absolve ourselves of process because we are emotionally tied to a matter. The process still has to take place. So for people who are asking the question, why is this individual allowed to walk around? He's not been arrested. What has he been charged with? What complaint has been made against him?
Interesting. Final thoughts. I'm going to read two comments to you from one of our Facebook viewers. He says, as long as there are poor people, there will always be physical currency for trade and wage. The rich set up cryptocurrency for them to conduct transaction unregulated outside of the established monetary system. It is too early to determine how much of this debacle was deliberately underregulated to allow for a crash of the system as an excuse for government to impose themselves in the regulation of billionaires' money. Those who gambled or invested are collateral damage. And then he says the government did not press any charges because of the conflict of interest they are preventing exposing their involvement. Now that's another show. I mean,
well, no, it is another show because people who make comments like that are irresponsible. Because if they know that there's a conflict of interest, then fine, you speak to that. But you can't conclude that the government didn't take an action because of conflict of interest. That's just another incendiary comment, which we have to get beyond that silliness, right? Because we just can't keep doing that.
This is what the Attorney General spoke to, correct? That kind of comment.
We have to be responsible. Listen, I get it. People are uptight about losing money, but that doesn't absolve us of our obligation to be responsible in what we say and how we say. So when people say things like that, I just simply dismiss it because we don't speak fact very well and often around here. We just like to talk about feelings and emotions, right? Or what we thought might have happened and what we think should happen. But it all has to be founded in fact. If it's not founded in fact, you're going to be dismissed. It's unfortunate.
All right. Yeah. All right. Well, Jeff, listen, man, I want to thank you so much for being a part of the show today and bringing your expertise and knowledge as it relates to how investing and investment works. You know, you've got some risk, you can have great rewards, but we can't forget that it also comes with responsibility. Your final thoughts on this matter?
I believe that it's a great opportunity for us to learn. It is my hope that we as a people remember that we have one Bahamas to build. Regardless of what you may think of the guy next door, we have one Bahamas to build. Let's do that using this scenario to help us be better. I want to say to you, again, we extend our condolences, our love, and our prayers. We pray that you would experience the grace of God and the comfort of God as He is the God of all comfort. Many have walked the road that you are walking, and we say to you that we will keep you in our prayers.
I really appreciate that. I do so much. Thank you so very much, Jeff. I appreciate that.
Blessings and
All
much
right,
love to
time
you.
is gone. Thank you. Thank you. Time is gone. Got to get out of here. And I want to send thanks to everyone who would have sent their condolences on the passing of my dad. We appreciate it very, very much. I'm Michelle Malcolm. I'm not sure what's going to happen tomorrow, y'all. I'm going to try to be here. I'm going to try to be here as much as I can before I have to
Keep you in
travel
our
for my
prayers.
father's funeral. But if not, then Professor Thompson is standing by and waiting to fill in for me. So thanks to everyone. And we'll see what happens tomorrow. Until then, I'm Michelle Malcolm. Thank you so much and have a good afternoon.